Hi, my name is Adriana McKinnon, Director of Logistics at Park Street Imports. As COVID-19 begins to recede in the US, demand for beverage alcohol is likely to increase as restaurants, bars, tasting rooms, and travel opens back up. But the current global disruption in trade and transportation is still facing unprecedented delays. The transportation industry, domestically and globally, continues to experience an increased impact at different points of the supply chain. At the beginning of the pandemic, freight companies responded to the immediate crisis by preserving finances, creating safe workspaces, adjusting the size of their workforces amid the uncertainty, and adhering to new safety and health regulations at ports, terminals, warehouses, and regulatory facilities. These changes are now translating into a higher frequency of extended transit times and delays at different points of the supply chain. Some of the main factors affecting transit times are diminished tracking and container availability, a general reduction of staff at different spots during transportation, limited pickup and drop-off schedules given by warehouses, last-minute transportation changes with delays of up to 6 weeks, increased difficulty to obtain delivery appointments in control states due to warehouses' strict delivery requirements, diminished ability to prioritize pickup dates or delivery dates, adherence to new health and safety measures delaying the inbound and outbound process at warehouses. As a result of the volatile environment, international and domestic carriers have been forced to adapt to new guidelines and operating procedures. This includes carriers ceasing to provide priority services on LTL lanes, carriers and forwarding companies declaring force majeure on shipping services that cannot be met as originally planned. This means that premiums paid for priority services are not being refunded. Addition of surcharges for peak transit times, bunker contributions, and congestion fees. Enforcing a revised policy for delivery appointments to be based upon tracking availability on the delivery date, as well as addition of new congestion surcharges for carriers, terminals, and freight forwarders. So as the shipping crisis develops, we on the receiving end are seeing US exporters seeing booking cancellations and no ability to move cargo. We're seeing shortages in equipment and space, as well as massive surcharges and rate increases, especially for international shipping. We're also experiencing the disappearance of guaranteed shipments domestically. Unloading ships is taking many more days than usual, and crews on the piers are often limited due to COVID issues. And then transportation cost volatility are affecting expense planification at a higher level. Our recommendation for brand owners is to be prepared for the unknown with a realistic but an innovative approach. Specifically, we would ask to plan and initiate shipments with as much time in advance as possible, including providing projections of your shipments quarterly or even yearly to whoever is coordinating the importation or domestic movement of your cargo. This is important because it will allow the person coordinating your shipments to try to negotiate the best rates available, even though the rates are much higher than they used to be, but also to get into possible charter vessels available. They're not very common, but they happen. So it's important that whoever you work with has a good idea of what your plans are so that they can reach out to you and provide you with different solutions that are currently being offered on a first come, first served basis. Something else is to expect continued congestion and delays. So this is not great. Nobody wants to hear it. But the reality is that we have to work in possible delays and possible congestion into our plans for importation. So this also is part of one, communicating it to the warehouse you work with as a brand owner and your possible customers and distributors in the US. Another important point is to allocate additional funds to shipping to cover for unexpected costs. So the last situation that you would want to be in is to finally arrive to the US with a 2 or 4 week delay or a 6-week delay, and to not be able to claim your cargo because there are additional funds incurred throughout shipping that have not been paid. So for that reason, we recommend to make sure that all expenses are prepaid and to maintain a strong communication line with the forwarding company you work with or the person who coordinates your shipments, to make sure that as soon as something, as an invoice is received, it is paid prior to arrival to the US. And this also includes any taxes, duties, or other responsibilities that are due upon arrival of product into the US, and for domestic upon arrival to the warehouse. Something else is considering alternative routes if available. And when it comes to alternative routes, my personal suggestion is to also be conservative. So if you're coming from a similar region, it is likely that you may run into similar situations. But it is worth it to explore the possibility of taking an alternative route from possibly a different country within your continent, especially for those shipments coming out of Europe, for example, where the distance from country to country is not so large. Another option is to consider air shipping as a placeholder solution to supply sampling requests or immediate needs for stock. It's probably not the most cost-effective solution. However, it could help maintain a good relationship with a potential distributor or an already existing client. Next will be avoiding quoting and shipping with a single carrier, if at all possible. So it is great to work with carriers we feel comfortable with. However, at this time, my recommendation would be to work with as many carriers as possible to quote with every possibility that is available within your network of trusted carriers. Of course, you'd have to choose one to ship, but the reason why, as a brand owner, you want to have more than one option is in case the option that was originally selected cannot deliver the service properly. So as long as you're in a position where you can still make a change, you will have an option B. Otherwise, you have to begin quoting. And because quotes are changing on a monthly basis, you're more exposed to an increase from when making a change from one carrier to the other. So definitely keep that in mind. And finally, this may sound obvious, but I think it's important to keep in mind as we initiate any kind of shipment, is to ensure that all other items associated with shipping, as documentation, payments, which we discussed, delivery appointments, etc., are correct and on time to avoid further delays, because it will take a lot of work to get that shipment to final destination. And we want to avoid a situation where we cannot claim the product because there's an incorrect invoice or something 100% avoidable. So that's definitely important to keep in mind and to make sure that everyone involved in the shipping process is aware of, as well as your customs broker you work with and the coordinator that manages your shipments. This is all I have for today. Thank you for listening.